Covering you from your LB1 to your taxi squad, this is IDP Nation.
Manning back, pumps, he fires to the far side, it's intercepted, and running into a touchdown.
Your home for the best in IDP and draft coverage.
Daniel has time in the pocket, steps up, and he's going to be hit from the side, and he's going down. That's a sack.
Welcome back to IDP Nation. I'm Hollywood. He is Sean, and we are joined by the one and only Dynasty Tripp. What's going on, Tripp?
That's a great day, Bo. It's good to see y'all. It's been excited to talk some football with you.
Yeah, it's been a minute or two. I can't get Sean to do nothing. So you know how that goes.
We're excited to have an expert. We've been drowning over here.
Yeah.
Well, if all you need is
we got to find. I was like, we got to find somebody way smarter than me and you.
Yeah.
I don't know about all that. If I can sit around and pontificate about football for an hour or so, that ain't no problem. I got you covered there. Anybody gets the thing out of it, it's all bonus.
Nice.
Well, we've been talking rookies the last few weeks. What's your initial thoughts on this draft class now that we know what the landing spots are?
Well, I know I like the first 20 or 25 players or so pretty well. In fact, better than I do in typical years. And I've really been surprised because people are not willing to trade in for the picks, at least not paying a high price to get in. People are not willing to not really interested in dealing the future firsts in the trade. The drafts I'm in are not flowing black. Right. It's really been strange, because I feel like there's a lot of good players, and I've been able to move a few assets to try to get in more of these guys, but I think it's you got three really good IDPs there at the top with Carter and Schlesinger and Campbell, and then you've got about 20 or so, depending on if you're super flex or not, 20 or 22 players that are pretty good prospects for offense too, and so. I've really been enjoying my rookie drafts and getting into it, moving up and down the board to get guys. I've got 3 clear tiers. In fact, I put a spreadsheet online on Twitter because I hadn't really seen a lot of guides and a lot of big boards, whatnot. I've had a few folks hit me and ask me questions about it, but it's been a fun class to navigate. How about y'all?
I stole your draft sheet. Just earlier.
Me too.
Yeah.
Well, consider all in the IDP Nation listener league together. I guess that makes sense. I should have done that.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny that you mentioned that there wasn't a lot of trades. I did 2 home leagues that I run. We've already had our draft in yet, and I've been in a couple other leagues that's already had their draft. And now that I think about it, I've noticed the same thing. There's not that. There's not that urgency or real push to try to move up.
Right.
It's almost like if you can find a way to move back, that's the play, which is not something we normally typically see, right? I know in one home league, and I'm going to ask you about him, I tried to trade up from 10 to 2 to go after Travis Hunter.
Yeah.
And the price tag for that was just 8 spots was ridiculous. It was really ridiculous. I'm not even going to tell you what it was, but it was ridiculous. I was like, considering what this draft has got, I'll just stay where I'm at, rather than give that away. But what's your thoughts on Hunter?
Well, that's like you're at 10, and now 10 to me, you're in tier 2 there. So there's a tier drop from 7 or 8 down to 10, which hurts. But right. So what I found is kind of the sweet spots there. If you're at 7 or 8, and then you're again around 14, 15, and then finally again around 20, 22, I find that there's just some tremendous values there. The guys that I'm getting there, it's like I look back at what did I get last year? And last year there was just craze to try to draft wide receivers because it was this historically good wide receiver class. And people were paying up to get guys like Xavier Legette and Adonai Mitchell. And those were kind of early second round guys in some of the drafts. I'm always in 14 team leagues, right? So early second round of the 14 team leagues. And this time around, there's just, I feel like Luther Burden is a better prospect than those guys, and I'm able to trade up easily and get him. And I'm surprised by that. That's just so I've got him, left and right, and it's just I'm not up at the top. Like I very rarely have picks high enough to get Genty and Hunter, and so I can't really speak to that. I haven't really tried to go after those guys too much. I did one time offer a guy. I had a lot of picks, and so I offered him my entire draft to move up from like 8 to 2, I think, and he turned it down. So that gives you some.
Yeah, that's well, last like I said, last year it was so wide receiver heavy that this year it's all running backs, and that's some of these guys are going higher than I think they should. Especially in that late first, early second. That's the only thing I've really noticed, just from year to year. Of course, quarterbacks aren't much to crow about this year, and then IDP. We keep hearing edge rushers, but it's been kind of sporadic, kind of all over the place as far as who's going where. Outside of Carter and like I said, Campbell, Schlesinger, then it's like anybody could be next after that. It's really been that sporadic.
Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed too, is once you get past that top 25 guys, it all of a sudden is a big drop, but then it's like a really slow value decline for like the rest of the draft. Like there are guys that you might be interested in rostering in the 55 team league almost all the way to the end of the 6th round. Right. That's like, and it's just so shallow. Like I feel like you can, like some of those day 2 edges are just, you're just splitting hairs with some of them. If I got Uman I can't pronounce his name, Uman Leland, but I mean, he looks like he has some upside. And that guy, I got that guy like pick 96 in a draft. I mean, it's just kind of fascinating. Right. And so, but the other thing, you flip that on the other end of that spectrum, and these round 4 running backs go high. Like people are chasing Bashal Tutin and, what's the other guy? Cam Scatabo. And man, those just don't seem like particularly strong bets if you're betting your pick 213 on a guy. I mean, that's just really striking to me. And you can get a guy in round 4, which doesn't seem to be, now it won't be a running back, but you have a good chance, equally good chance of hitting on a guy in round 4 is that. It's just really fascinating how flat it is once you get around the very late second and from there on the rest of the way.
I assume part of that is because of the late round hits last year with Bucky Irving and Tyrone Tracy. Those guys you were able to get quite a bit later, 3rd, 4th rounders, and for them guys to just blow up everybody else. I guess that's the theory now is hammer running back. It's a running back class, so we just got to get them all. Allows the rest of us to catch up all the other good positions.
Yep. Yeah, I agree 100%. So I'm reminded of 2017 when Kamara and Hunt and Connor came out. And those guys were 3rd round real life picks. And people were debating, do we take these guys ahead of the tight ends? I think Njoku and Ingram were first rounders that year. Or John Ross was a wide receiver that was drafted in the 1st round. And then, of course, Kamara, Hunt, and Connor all hit. And John Ross was almost predictably a bust, right? And so like the wide, he had all these real world 1st round picks. And the question was, when do you take these 3rd round running backs? And the answer ended up, 2020 hindsight is that you need to take them early. And ever since then, people have been taking these 3rd round running backs early. And if you look back on it, like not that many of them hit. David Montgomery's been a big hit. There's been a couple others that had moments. Devon Achane might still do something, might still be a, really good pick, but he's done something in 2 years. But then so like you're saying, Sean, last year you've got these guys that went in the 4th round that were hits that you might have gotten in the 3rd round of your rookie draft, Irving and Tracy. And so people are just totally overcorrecting and trying to get Tutin and Scatabo and some of these other guys. And it's just, that's just not a good value play. They may hit. That's not to say they won't, but trying to taking them in the 2nd round is just not, if you look at that history of the last 8 years or so of what even the 3rd round guys have done, it's just not a lot of, just not good value in my opinion. It's really striking.
And then on the other side, it's always offense is overvalued over IDP, and that's something we're constantly battling. It doesn't matter the size of the league, what the scoring is. Even if it's pretty even scoring, it's still, the preferred offense over defense. And it's how many games have you won, or how many leagues have you won with just a great defense and a pretty solid offense because everybody overlooked it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, I joined the. Go ahead, Daryl.
Sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just thinking about a league I joined a few years ago, and the commissioner admitted to me when he saw I had just joined the league. It was a startup league, and it was a contract league. I spent less money in offense than everybody else in the league. And I think the commissioner thought that was just going to be a weak play, and he didn't expect me to do well. But I was able to make the playoffs and go pretty deep in that with a strong defense on that. And it's just, and this may be the year where you can really load up on defense. In fact, I posted a draft, same league actually. I posted my draft. I had like 13 picks, I think, maybe 11. Anyway, I had like 9 defenders out of 11 picks. I never had that many. I always had a lot of offense. And this year, it's just the value was at defense. I had Campbell in the second round, late second, instead of those 4th round running backs. The tackles. This is a league where you start 2 defensive tackles, and people aren't chasing these tackles. And it's like, they're not perfect prospects, but they're pretty darn good prospects. And people are just making it out like, Mason Graham is just a ho-hum prospect to the 5th overall pick, or that Kenneth Grant doesn't deserve to be drafted. He's a 13th overall pick. He's going to load up on snaps this year. No, he may not be an elite pass rusher in year 1, but he's going to play a ton.
Yeah, there's nobody in front of him.
Right.
Yeah. And I like Walter Nolan in Arizona, too. I know they got Calais Campbell and who is it?
Tomlinson. Yeah, Robinson's there, too. But they rotate those guys so much. Everybody's going to get a shot.
Yeah, and Campbell's probably going to be gone next year, or maybe the year after if he decides to hang around another year. So Walter Nolan, I definitely think he's one you got to have on your roster because to me, I think his upside as a pass rusher is better than the rest of them. He's not quite as good as a run stopper, but pass rush ability. And if you're in a league like you're saying, where we start 2 defensive tackles, it's almost like a no-brainer for me that you get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got him in that league too that I was talking about. I got I took Graham and Nolan like 2 picks apart. So yeah, I don't see a huge amount of separation between those 2 guys as prospects. I think Nolan probably has a higher bust rate, but as far as actually being a strong starter for IDP, I would say that they're not too far apart in terms of upside.
Right. So out of this draft class on the IDP side, your early projection, who do you like to win defensive?
Oh man, I haven't thought about that much, to be honest with you. I guess you got to go Campbell. I don't think Nakobe Dean is ready to play this season. I've got to imagine that Dean, this is in year 4 of his contract. He's coming off a serious injury. He's always been undersized for Fangio's scheme, right? Bond was always a great fit. And, at one point, Dean was thought to be behind Devin White, too. And then something happened, and that exploded on everybody. And I just got to imagine that Campbell was drafted just to come in and supplant Dean right away and just run with it. And so, you saw that, Bond loaded up on stats and the defense was good. And if they can replicate that kind of production in 2025, I mean, Campbell's got to have a good chance at it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think Schlesinger is going to be right there. Right? I think with the JOK news, right, that he's out for the year, I almost kind of think back now, I think the Browns were expecting this a little bit because they took Schlesinger pretty high. So they had to know something was coming, right? So I felt like they were best case scenario. If JOK didn't play, they had their guy. And I think that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Best case, JOK plays, you still got Schlesinger who you can bring along and get ready. You've got 2 really good linebackers. I just kind of feel like they knew something was coming with JOK, or they wouldn't have took him that high, I don't feel like.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Same thing with Campbell. The Eagles, I think, it's been quiet about Dean's injury. Well, I've heard a little bit where it was pretty nasty compared to, some of the others, and I think that's why they jumped up and took Campbell, because they do expect him to miss this entire season, if not most of it. And then the whole thing kind of threw us there for a little while was them talking about, well, we see him playing on the edge and all that too, which at first had me like kind of knocking him. I'm like, man, I want to lower this guy if they just throw him out on the edge. But I think that was kind of a saving face that, if Dean does come back and can play, like, hey, we're not saying you've lost your job just yet, but you've lost your job.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's a thought about it. Well, how can we get all three of them on the field? And you just not going to see a lot of that in that defense.
No.
Yeah. Well, you don't see a lot of that in the NFL as a whole now, right?
Right.
Usually, if you've got two, I don't want to say dominant, but if you've got two really good linebackers, then you roll with those two, and then from there it's all pass rushers and safe, three safeties. And you're seeing that trend more than you are a true traditional three linebackers. And I don't know if anybody does the true 3-4. I don't know, 3 down linemen and 4 true linemen. I don't know that we see a whole lot. You might see some sub packages of it, but
yeah, that's pretty much thing of the past. Same thing with the 4-3s. I mean, it's all 4-2 or
it's all
4-1. Yeah, I mean that's realistically. There's a couple teams that only put a one linebacker out there all game. Browns being one of them. That's why I'm a little hesitant on Schlesinger just taking off, especially for defensive rookie of the year, because Hicks is still there and he's going to get his touches. Bush kind of screwed himself out of it, but so Schlesinger, we may only see him at high 60s, low 70% of the snaps until Hicks gets hurt. It's going to happen. I just don't know when.
Sure. Yeah. That's a good point about the Browns linebacker rotation. They have not hesitated to have a full blown rotation. That they haven't. I mean, JOK finally played close to full time before he got hurt, and that was the first time in his career. I think that's year 4, right?
Yeah.
And so Hicks is not a full time player necessarily, and really throughout the defensive coordinator's tenure there, I'm drawing a blank as to who the defensive coordinator is. Jim Schwartz. They've been rotating linebackers the whole time he's been there, and so I don't think it's a safe assumption that Schlesinger will immediately step in there and be full time. And I see in a lot of folks that are they're drafting Schlesinger ahead of Campbell in rookie drafts. But I'm a little bit surprised by that. But first of all, because of the playing time, and second of all, if you look at the fact that Dean was a top 12 linebacker in most formats last year, it's like if Campbell just plugs in for him, it's like, I must be missing something, but I don't see how you can have Campbell behind Schlesinger in either count for playing time or point efficiency.
Right now they are going back to back in rookie drafts. People have been sending me their actual rookie drafts, and Campbell's been going at 24.8, and Schlesinger has been going at 25.3. So usually, in a lot of these drafts, a lot of them usually, like if I see one of them go, the other one will go within a pick or two. So it's like 23, the other one goes at 25, 16, the other one goes at 17. So.
Yeah, I'm seeing that too. It's like one triggers taking the other. People will trade up or whatever to get them.
Yeah, they're the clear cut top 2, and then it gets funky after that. You either take the old guy or one of the high upside guys.
Yeah, I see I see people wait a full round before they'll take Knight after those other guys, which makes sense. It's probably about right, I guess. But he's a guy.
Let's see.
What do you got in your?
He is going 43.3, so
even more than a round,
even more,
yeah, about 19 picks, yeah.
Which is
what's crazy is in some of them I've been seeing Nick Martin go ahead of that.
Really? Wow. Huh.
Yeah. There's
people
a few leagues he went ahead of him.
People just writing off D. Winters, though. I think there's a chance he has the starting spot.
I do too, at least for a while.
Especially early on.
Yeah. It's rookie fever, man. It does wonders for us.
Crazy.
Like, fall in love with them. Trade me your old guy you're not happy with, or let this other guy slide. I love it.
Yeah, if you can give me a guy that's shown that he can play in the NFL for his original draft cost, I'm almost always all in. And it's just, and you see this, I see it more and more now. And it used for a while there, it was just, especially edges when we went to true position. You'd see some of these guys late first, early second type edges like Boye Mafe. And and then the next year he's basically free. So why'd you draft him and then just give him up? Like this happened in IDP Nation for League One. Somebody I think cut Mafe, or either that they traded him to me for next to nothing. It's like, it's just, and I'm starting to see it in more and more positions now where people are just expecting these guys. If they didn't break out as rookies, they're expected to be available at discounts at this time of year, which I find kind of fascinating. Actually, it's like but it's getting more and more common.
Defensive line is like the hardest to break out of. It takes several years for these guys. Like even the studs don't produce week to week. I mean, it's sporadic. Matchup's got to be right. I mean, it's turf, grass. There's so many variables in it. Like I said, the studs, they don't pop off 4 sacks every week, 3 sacks every week. And to expect a rookie to come in, I don't care what his draft position is, he's got to adjust, and he's going against the best of the best, not just whatever my conference has. And it takes 2-3 years for a lot of these defensive lines to become studs or bust.
Yep. Speaking of that, I kind of like.
And it's funny.
Devontae Wyatt in that sense. I think a lot of people are sleeping on him. He's almost free.
Yes.
They just picked up his 5th-year option. I think he's like Ed Oliver light. I just, that he could be kind of that pass rush, lighter guy, pass rush specialist. No, he's not Ed Oliver yet, but he might get there. Ed Oliver's not that good.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I've actually got a show I'm doing Tuesday with Ricky Rodriguez. I don't know if y'all know him from IDP Plus. Defensive tackles is our topic. Basically, we're going to go over the top 24. Who's going to drop out? Who's going to come in? And Devontae Wyatt was one of the last guys I added to my one in that top 24 contract year. It's all sitting there. It's like he's just been kind of outside here, and you start talking money. That's a pretty big motivator for a guy like that.
Oh yeah. And it's funny you said that a minute ago, Tripp. Thank you, Daniel, for tuning in and listening. You were talking about how everybody's drafting rookies with the mentality of they have to start now, they have to produce right now. And I've noticed this offseason that when you said that, I thought, I have said that a million times this offseason. So when people ask me, what do I think about so-and-so rookie, or what do you think about this rookie? It's like my first sentence is, I really like the guy in the landing spot or whatever, but you're going to have to be patient. It's like I always have to put that, you're going to have to be patient. Don't just, if it don't happen in the first 10 weeks, don't just say piss on it and throw him away, because it's going to happen. Just, and it's like weeks, 15 through 17, when the attrition sets in and there's all these injuries and teams are out of the playoffs, so they want to see what they've got. Young guys, I think those weeks are so critical for rookies, because that's when you really see what they can do. And I just feel like, when you said that, I tell people all the time, be patient. Don't panic if it don't happen right away.
Yeah. There's probably 5 rookies that are going to come in and play big loads right away, and that's it on defense. And then after that, you're waiting for the rest of these guys to develop.
Yeah. And I think one of those guys is going to be Malachi Starks with the injury to Darius Washington.
For sure.
I already liked him there before the injury, but that injury just kind of sealed it for me. Starks next to Kyle Hamilton in that defense, man, he's just going to be something else, I think.
Yeah. Murray, also another good spot, good defense setup. Guy that used to coach on the Ravens there, McDonald. He looks to be an immediate starter. Not the greatest set of linebackers or linebacker group in the world in front of him. So,
but to keep in mind that Mike McDaniel drafted, or when he was defensive coordinator, his team drafted Kyle Hamilton, and Hamilton did not play full-time right away. He came on as sort of a sub-package player, and I think Emma Murray fits into that same mold. I think that Love and Kobe Bryant are your starters, are starting safeties there, and that Emma Murray comes into a part-time role. And I hope he hits right away. It's clear to me is easily the top safety prospect, despite that for me, because I think there's a big upside there with that athleticism and the expectation that he'll be playing close to the line of scrimmage and attacking. And so I like him a lot, but I do think that even if you're drafting him, I think you got to be patient. I don't think he's a guy you can expect to start week 1.
That's true for just about every Ravens defensive rookie. You go back to Owe and Dabo, like any of them, even Trent Simpson, none of those guys got thrown in right away. Go back to Patrick Queen, he was in and out for Josh Bynes there for a couple of years. I don't know if it's just their system is just that complicated, that hard to get in check, or if they just like, hey, we're just going to kind of throw you in there a little bit, pull you back out, see how you do. But it's a definite process. It's hard to trust, especially right away.
I think it's a lot about the expectation about player instincts in that system. I don't think it's like a complicated system to learn. I don't think it's a book smart issue. I think it's a matter of you've got this is your responsibility. This is your cue, and there's like 5 different things you might have to do, and you've got to read that correctly. And I think it just takes time for the players, the rookies, to come in and learn and do the right thing. And I think they're too often making mistakes, and that's why a guy like Bynes, I think they signed off the street. It's come in and play mid-year that year, and I think that's what happens there with those guys, with the Ravens in particular. So the Seahawks are playing, effectively the same defense, and so I think that you'll see. You had Byron Murphy last year was the top overall defender taken, or close to it, right? As a defensive tackle, and he didn't play a ton of snaps, and it's just going to take time to work in. And that parallels Justin Matabuke, who took until year 4 to break out in a similar role in Baltimore. It's just it takes some time to get into that defense, like y'all were saying.
Yeah, and it's almost like Baltimore handles their rookies completely different from everybody else, right? Like they don't just throw them out there to be throwing them out there. They do it with a purpose, right? Like you were kind of saying, this is your 5 or 6 plays we want you to know, and then they put you in situations to see how you handle those 5 or 6 plays, right? It's like a test, and then once they feel like they're getting comfortable with you, then they expand the role depending on what the need is, right? But if they don't have a need, they just kind of continue to let you grow, and I think it's worked out well for them. I mean, we talked about Kyle Hamilton and them. I mean, and I think you're going to see a lot of that, like Teddy Buchanan. I love the fit in Baltimore, but everybody's already saying, "Oh gosh, he's going to jump in and be that number 2 behind Roquan Smith." Well, maybe, but it's not going to happen right away, right? I mean, let's not get carried away. I do love the fit. I do love the player, and I think he's going to be. If Simpson don't work out, then maybe his turn will come. But I think they just get a little too eager. What's up, Jamie? Thanks for tuning in. Yes, we are talking IDP always. I don't know how much redraft you do, Tripp, but I asked Sean to because I know we have a lot of redraft listeners, and we don't always talk redraft, and I forget it because I'm so dynasty oriented. I only have like a handful, if that, of redraft leagues, and they're usually best ball, so I don't really tune into that. But Sean, and you too, Tripp. Sean, who did you have that you wanted to look at? Buy, sales.
For buying sales?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, first off, let's hit one more rookie.
Okay, go ahead.
This buy sell thing. Yeah, I am really curious on everybody's take on this, and we've talked about it with everyone else. Jalen Walker, what are you expecting there? Because I'm not expecting a lot, even in a few years. So, what's your thoughts there, Tripp? Are you expecting a potential breakout, or was this man just drafted too high?
I have a hard time with that one. I don't see the same kind of impact player, really not even close to Abdullah Carter. It's like, I don't even see him as being significantly better than James Pierce. That being said, I think that every expectation is that Walker will start. It's just, does he come in and make an impact right away? Boy, I'd be surprised. The one thing I can say, I think in Atlanta's defense and Jeff Ulbricht's defense, I expect a lot of rotation. I expect him just to kind of, there's some talk about whether or not he's going to play off ball or whatnot. I'd be surprised. I just think they play him wide and have him play kind of an outside linebacker role in that defense. And, just more of a split end role, I guess would be a better way to say it. Right. And just let him rip and see how that goes for a while. But I'm expecting a heavy rotation. I don't expect, I think people are expecting tackles out of him. I wouldn't expect a high tackle efficiency. Right. I'm not excited about him. I'm not landing him anywhere in drafts. And part of that's because the edge class is so deep, they don't feel the need to do it.
Right. Yeah, we had Mike Waller on last week, and he, I'd sent him my rookie big board, and he sent me his. And we both had Walker and Mykel Williams. We had them both outside the top 15. And everybody else that we've talked to, even the IDP hunter, he was kind of low on them too. So, but I still keep getting asking questions about Jalen Walker, where I fit. And, I think they should have took James Pierce where they took Walker and then tried to do something. If they wanted to move up, do something with that pick. Because I'm like you, I don't think Walker is anywhere good as Pierce. If I'm drafting a pass rusher from that team, it's going to be Pierce. I think the reason they doubled down is because their pass rush has been horrible over the past few years, and they know it. So they were trying to, instead of firing one bullet, let's fire two and hope we hit 50% type deal.
Well, the way I heard it is that they were targeting Pierce at 15, and they were not expecting Walker to be there. And so when he was there, they felt like they had to take the best player available. That's what I heard or read. And then they were watching Pierce just because, it's always if you're on your own rookie draft, if you've got a player that you were interested in, and then you feel like the board broken away, you've got to take the best player available. You watch that player and you see, is there an opportunity to trade back up to get him? That's what the Falcons did. And it is the fascinating thing to me about that is that the Falcons are basically communicating that they think they're a win now team, which that seems like
awful
a stretch.
bold.
Yeah, exactly. Awful bold. But you think back to what Houston did a couple of years ago. Houston, that seemed like an absolutely stupid move to me. I felt like the Cardinals were gifted a situation where they moved back from 3 to 7 to get the offensive tackle. They won it all along, and then they got Houston's first round pick in the next year. And I thought with Stroud there as a rookie, that the next year they would be bad again, and they weren't. They were a middle of the road, I think, or maybe even I don't think they made the playoffs, but they were close. And so that pick ended up being a mid-round 2024, was that? I think Stroud was a 2023 pick. Will Anderson and Stroud were 23 picks. And so I was shocked that they took, traded their future first to get their third overall pick for Will Anderson. I thought that was, and so this is kind of a light version of that. It's another team that thinks that they're betting on themselves and they think this will work out. And I guess it might, but did you see the footage of I think it was Howie Roseman laughing about how much they paid to move up?
Yeah.
Because they were trying to move up for several picks in a row to get Campbell, and they couldn't move up. He's like, well, now we see why people are paying that kind of a price to move up. Like, who could fault anybody for taking that deal? But yeah, that was starky. But yeah, so I do think they wanted Pierce at 15. I felt, and then they had the opportunity to get him at 26, I think it was, and they just. They just fell over themselves, obviously, to get him. But the other thing about that, though, is that you got Jeff Albrecht. Like you said, Daryl, they haven't had any pass rushers there forever, right? I mean, the last good pass rusher they had was that one big year that Vic Beasley had, and that's it. I mean, they just,
don't mention that name. Whoa.
Forever.
Yeah, that's like 10 years ago.
He's too busy eating chicken wings at the strip clubs down in Atlanta.
And so they've been near the bottom of the sacks in so many years, and you could bring in Jeff Albrecht, and he has a history of wanting to really do a deep rotation of pass rushers and keep guys out there just blazing up field as fast as they can. And you knew they were going to need to add people. And so, it's a little surprising they added 2 first rounders, obviously, but it wasn't surprising to me that they took 2 edges. They needed to load up.
Yeah, I didn't think they would take them back to back. That was the thing, right? And honestly, I'll probably catch a lot of pushback on this, but honestly, what they gave up to get Pierce, I don't think was too terribly bad. I think the problem is people see that they took Jalen Walker at 15 or whatever it was, and then you did this to get Pierce. I think your value for Pierce at 26, that's good because he's going to be your star pass rusher.
Mm-hmm.
The reason he failed is he had some off-field issues, right? There was some concerns about the off-field stuff, so he slid a little bit. But man, if I'm them, I don't know how you had Walker just strictly on-field evaluations. I don't know how you have Walker ahead of Pierce, because a lot of the things that I've heard about Pierce is, well, he had a down year last year. He only had 7.5, 8 sacks, whatever it was. And I'm like, dude, go back and watch the first of the year when they're playing Kent State, whoever the hell else it was, the first 3 or 4 games. He only played a quarter or a quarter and a half in those first few games because he was killing them. I mean, he was getting double teamed, and a lot of time when he beat double team, there's a running back standing there. Teams were focused on him because he is so dominant, and he still had one of the best pressure rates in all of college football last year. So I know we're fantasy based, and numbers is king, right? That's why we play fantasy footballs for the numbers. But yeah, I just don't see it with Walker. I think Walker is a reach, and I think he's going to be a bigger bust than what they paid for Pierce. I think Pierce is going to be the guy. So, any other rookies we want to touch on before we hit the redraft?
That's the most compelling one I can think of. Just because
Mike Waller.
So high.
It's funny because I sent Mike Tripp. He asked me that morning, Friday morning, like, send me over your rookie big board and I'll send you mine. I was like, okay. And I just got to work at 8 o'clock and I sent him the big board, and within a few minutes, I got a message back from him, and he said, "Oh wow, your ranks on Jalen Walker and Michael Williams." And I was like, "Oh no, what did I do? Mike's going to roast me." Right? I was like, "Man, am I way far off?" And then we got on the show, and he's like, "Man, you're the first one outside of me that I've seen that has them ranked outside the top 15." I said, I had them in I said, when I started my big board, the first, 10, 12 names that come to mind, your Carters, your Hunters, whatever. Yep. I said, I just threw them out there and I ranked them. And I said, when I had them, they were initially in it. And I said, and then as I started, looking at other rookies and where they fell and this, that, and the other, I said, next thing I know, they was almost outside of my top 20. So, I guess it's just how it happens sometimes. But, all right, Sean, what we got for redraft?
Yeah, we got some buy and sell questions here. Get your guys' opinions. Right. I've already kind of give you my list there, Daryl, about what I thought about them. We'll start with a couple D linemen. Let's go Jonathan Allen and Josh Sweat. Two guys, two different positions, two new teams. Are you guys buying Jonathan Allen's new transition to Minnesota, playing there with all of a sudden pretty crowded, dominating looking defensive line? And then you got Josh Sweat, who had the big game in the Super Bowl, now going to Arizona, rejoining Coach Gannon and that system there. What are your thoughts on those two guys?
I honestly think this is huge for Allen, right? I mean, Minnesota's, depending on what they get out of their quarterback this year, right? I mean, Allen is there and they also brought in Javon Hargrave, right? So that's your two ends. You've got Harrison Phillips in there at the nose, and then you're flanked with Jonathan Grenard and Dallas Turner as your outside guys. So
you got Van Ginkel in there as well.
Yeah, Van Ginkel. Yeah. So I like it for him. I think he's having better pass rushers around him. I think when they lost Montez Sweat, I think that kind of hurt. Right? It hurt him and Payne both because they didn't have. I don't think Washington truly had that star that alleviates some of the pressure off of interior guys. And I think for you to be an interior pass rusher, you kind of got to have that star on the edge that teams are focused. Don't have to be a superstar, right? Not everybody can be Max Crosby and whatever. But I think just having someone serviceable that, Montez Sweat, having him out there, I think made a difference. And him going to Chicago, I think that kind of hurt him. I think Allen, I don't want to say he wore out his welcome because he'll go down as a Washington commander forever, right? But I think going to Minnesota is going to help him. He's got a little better talent around him. He's going to be reinvigorated, I think. For him, I like him. He's somebody I'm trying to pick up in Dynasty too. I know the time frame for Dynasty is a lot shorter now because of his age, but I think if you can get 1 or 2 years out of Allen and Dynasty, I think you'll be happy with what you will probably be giving up to get him because I don't think you'll have to spend much to get him in Dynasty.
Yeah, Dynasty is viewed as an old guy who's probably past his prime, which defensive linemen especially interior,
Right.
have a little longer shelf life there. So it's
Are you taking him earlier in redraft? I mean, knowing that it's only like basically a 1-year thing.
So in redraft, if I don't get, let's say, DeForest Buckner or Kobe Turner, if they go higher than I'm willing to pay up, then I'll probably just go back to hammering edge or linebacker and then pick up Jonathan Allen later. Like I think he is a buy, especially this season. Yeah, I'm excited to see how this whole line plays out because the rotation they can come up with and just the different looks that Flores could come up with, with those 6 guys, 7 guys. I mean, it's going to cause chaos, especially I think he's going to come up with something we haven't, or a lot of these quarterbacks haven't seen enough of, and keep everybody fresh, which is key, especially for these older guys.
Right.
I think these guys are going to wreak havoc, I think.
I think if you're comparing one to the other, I think part of it depends on, are we talking about 2 defensive tackle starters or not? If you are, I'm pretty interested in Allen in that case. I like Allen a lot. I think he's a really good player, and I certainly agree that he'll probably be a value. It's if you're in a 1DT league, you could probably get him like super late. You could probably just wait to the end of your draft and
just pick him up off waivers.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Either that, or if you're picking 14th or something like that, if you're the 14th guy to take a tackle, he might be there. Or even later. Yeah, which is interesting. But Sweat is. You like the stability or the floor of Sweat. But we kind of know. I don't see a lot higher ceiling than what he's had. I don't see him as a guy that can get the 15 sacks. He's just a good, not great defensive end, good pass rusher. He's certainly a need in Arizona. I mean, they trotting Zaven Collins out there at the edge. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, it's definitely an upgrade for them for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a clear need. It probably plays a healthy volume, and it's I think a real safe bet to pick up 8 sacks this year in that defense. So if you're you're playing with just one defensive tackle, then Sweat's an easy starter. But he feels more like if you're in a shallower league, he feels like a guy that's kind of the first defensive lineman off your bench and not a guy you're excited to start every week.
Would you think this would be a good time to sell Sweat after the big Super Bowl? He got the big contract. Maybe his name's inflated a good bit right now, especially like Dynasty. Would you be looking to move him now? Because
this is the time to move him, right? Big value because he just got the big contract. He had the big show out the Super Bowl. I mean, he's probably a guy that you could have gotten for a song before the Super Bowl in the contract, and now he's commanding a price, and at 28 years old, it's like, I don't. If you can pivot to a younger guy with some upside, it's probably the play.
So, all right. So keeping it with edge rusher, next guy, Trey Hendrickson. So another guy who I would say has probably hit his ceiling and coming off 2 back-to-back strong seasons. And now you got contract disputes and all this going on. What are you guys doing with him? Are you trying to buy him, or is the price coming down for a guy like Hendrickson with all the off the field stuff going on right now, contract wise? Is that somebody you're going to buy, or are you trying to sell this guy and get rid of him?
I would agree that he's probably peaked. I mean, back-to-back 17 and a half seasons, right? Sack seasons. Doing that for a third time, I would say the odds are pretty slim. I wouldn't rule it out, but I would say they're pretty slim. If I'm in redraft, honestly, I don't know that I'm even got him on my board early because of this contract thing. Right? The last thing that we've seen is negotiations are basically non-existent, and he's come out and said either give me a new deal or trade me or I'm not playing. So we've seen this in the past, and that didn't work out well for some people like Le'Veon Bell and so on. But Cincinnati's had a history of not paying players. Look at Jesse Bates, right? We went through that for like a whole 2 or 3 years, and he eventually went somewhere else, which good for him. It worked out. I just redraft in Dynasty. I think you've got to hold him, right? But redraft, I don't know where I would honestly. I think he gets drafted at some point in redraft, but I don't know where that would be. y'all know better than me. I would tend to think that has to be later just because of the uncertainty.
Yeah.
It helps drive. He was always later than, your, I guess what's considered the elite guys. But, he's pretty much out.
Yeah, he's not going to be drafted with the Garretts and the Crosbys and players like that. But after back-to-back 17.5 sack seasons, it's hard to argue taking him early, right?
To me, you've got a guy that's never put up big tackle numbers. So part of it's about your format.
That's the big problem. Yeah.
And so if you've got a format that's big play scoring, that's one thing. If you're playing in a format where it's more tackle dependent, right? Like y'all were saying, he's never been an elite option in a league that's tackle dependent, in a fantasy league that's tackle dependent. I think he's kind of proven that he's an elite pass rusher in the NFL. And so that makes it, if you're in a big play scoring format, and no, it's not likely to get 17.5 sacks again, but I think it's more about just kind of the odds than the ability. And so if you can get him as your, 18th or 20th defensive end off the board in a redraft, it's pretty attractive, price at that point where you're taking a gamble on a guy that gives you a distinct advantage week in and week out.
Yeah. The last guy here is a guy I'm actually been trying to target in any format, and he's completely overlooked right now. Malcolm Kuntz, coming off the injury, looked really good a couple of years ago. Looked like he was grabbing that spot across from Max Crosby. He looked the part on tape. Then the big injury, missed all of last season. Should be healthy enough to come back. Honestly, I have not looked up to see where he is progressively. I imagine he's doing pretty well. I haven't heard anything negative. But is this a guy, are you guys buying that he can go back to that pre-injury form and maybe be a breakout star, or are we looking at somebody who's just going to get lost on the roster? We got Daryl.
Personally, myself, I think he's a good back. Right? One, not a lot of people knew about him before last season's breakout, right? Or 2 years ago breakout. And then the fact that he got hurt and missed all of last season, I kind of feel like whatever popularity he gained completely got washed by the injury last year, because he's out of sight, out of mind, right? And people are like, well, who's Malcolm Kuntz? And, he was coming off an injury and whatever. So I think in Dynasty, I think he's a perfect kind of buy low player, right? Because, like you said, not 100% sure what you're getting from him, right? Last I saw is he's on track to be ready, full go for the season. So if he's healthy, and of course it helps having Mad Max playing across from you, right? And you got Christian Wilkinson there. Yeah, I mean, in Dynasty, I think I'm trying to get him on my team. I don't think I want him as far as like a DN1 or a DN2, but if you can get him like your DN3, and the price is right, I think you take that.
I got him in one league right now, and he was traded in that. It's a league with multiple copies. It's a really interesting league. It's 6 copies per player.
Is that the Premier League?
Yeah. Uh-huh. Are you in that?
I was years ago. I haven't been at the last few years. Yeah.
How about that? Yeah, I enjoy that league, in part just because the trading environment is just so interesting. There's just so many lessons to learn from it. Seeing 6 copies of each guy flying around.
Because you can trade anywhere.
Exactly.
It's incredible.
Did you say 6 copies?
6 copies, yes.
Yeah,
so there's 84 teams in the league, 14-team format, 6
Holy
copies.
Holy
Yeah, it's fascinating in a way. I mean, just like the draft is going on now. The draft takes like 6 weeks.
Yeah. Well, because it's people all over the world too.
Yeah.
And so when I was there, we were the last tiered, and that's back when it was 6 tiers of 16 teams.
Yeah,
and then with turnover and everything, it became hard to fill all these empty orphan teams and all, do the dispersals and all this stuff. I left after the first year. It hit 14.
Okay,
but it was crazy league. Like 6 copies, all 6 copies may end up in the same division. You know what I mean? Like it's insane. You move up, you move down.
Yeah. I joined it. Picked up I joined the dispersal in 2018, and I started off pretty good, but I've kind of been floundering along for a while here. I keep missing on younger players, but I do have Kuntz on a roster, and it's interesting you ask about him because it's like he feels like my DE5 in that league, to be honest.
Right.
And it's not I have the greatest DE. I had decent DE room, but it's just when he was traded.
Damn, I love that. If you think he's your defensive end 5,
mm-hmm.
I freaking love that. I would freaking smash that all day. Who's your defensive ends, if you don't mind me asking?
I got Joey Bosa, Jonathan Grenard, Carl Granderson. Maybe he's my DE4 because I can't remember who the other one is. So it's not an awesome room, but it's okay.
This guy's going to see some playing time for you this year. I see it.
Yeah.
So,
especially with Joey Bosa on your roster. You know how we love you.
Yeah, go to spot starts for sure with that one. That's a good point.
Oh man. Awesome.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite in redraft. I'm probably going to get him for nothing. I do play a lot of IDP only leagues, and we can start 12, 13 starters in a lot of these. So he's probably going to be somebody I target later on, who realistically could finish as an edge 2.
Wow.
That's probably ceiling.
I would agree with that.
It's somebody I'm excited to see what happens this year. After that breakout and everything accumulating over there right now, I'm really hoping for a big bounce back here. So definitely a guy I'm looking to buy in any format.
Do you think that Tyree Wilson just totally fades away, or do you think Crosby quits playing 100% snaps? Or
I think Wilson fades away. He just hasn't done much of anything. Not in my eyes to warrant being a full-time starter. Now, I think him and Kuntz probably start out rotating again, just till Kuntz, gets back in rhythm, can really get back to form and everything, and then I think Kuntz takes off with it, and he just becomes that third guy. Maybe he does to fill in a little for Crosby to help extend his career a little bit. That's how I see it.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff.
Some linebackers. I really want to hear you guys' opinions on these guys. Quay Walker, his fifth-year option was not picked up by the Packers. We've seen him have some on-the-field issues, just boneheaded plays, immaturity issues. The Packers have kind of said, we're moving on from you. They kind of doubled down, re-signing Isaiah McDuffie, who I think will definitely hang around, probably be a starter partially this year with a rotation, and then maybe take over with Cooper next year more. So what are you guys doing with Quay Walker? Are you trying to buy him up, or do you see him? It's asking a lot to predict the future here with what's going to happen with him. What's his value at right now? Could you even sell the guy?
I don't know that you could sell him for most likely what you have invested in him, but you could definitely sell him. I think on the alternate side, I'm trying to buy for sure. And right now, specifically, like if I want Quay Walker, I'm buying him right now before this season, before the kickoff of the first game. Because here's why. You talked about, sorry, I'm stuttering for some damn reason, but anyway, you talked about they didn't pick up his. Shut up, Sean. You talked about they didn't pick up his fifth-year option, which leaves some uncertainty and doubt as to where does he play next year. Right? So he's playing in Green Bay this year, but after that, who knows?
He's playing for a contract somewhere.
Exactly. And here's why I say he's a buy. Because if he comes out this year and just lights it up and has one hell of a fantasy season, his price tag, regardless of where he lands next year, is going to go through the roof. So if you think maybe that happens, or even if he has a mediocre season and you think his next landing spot will be better suited for him and he rebounds then, so you're banking this year and next year he's going to have a good season. Now's the time to do it, because if you wait till the season starts and he starts having good games, and I say if he starts having good games, that price tag's just going to start tricking up. It's going to start trending back up. So I think if you're buying him right now,
What do you think, Tripp? You in the same agreement there?
He scares me, to be honest with you.
I'm with Tripp. I'm scared of this team.
You've got
I didn't say that I would. I didn't say that I was buying him. I'm just saying if you believe that that's going to happen, now's the time to do it. I'm kind of scared of him too, to be honest.
Yeah. You got Edric, like you mentioned, McDuffie being re-signed. I think there's a world in which Cooper just takes the mantle, and McDuffie plays alongside of him, and that's it. And does it happen right away? Does it happen mid-season? Does it happen because of injury? So I think there's two ways to look at Walker long-term. One is he a guy like Jalen Smith, Blake Martinez, Miles Jack, where he just was this highly drafted player or hyped player, big-time Dynasty IDP asset that just cannot find his footing in his second home. That being said, there have been guys like Kenneth Murray who could find his footing in a second home. So maybe it's not that hard, I don't know.
I don't know what these guys say in the interviews, but it's got to be phenomenal, right?
I mean, another interesting one is Patrick Queen. So maybe you look at Walker and say he does what Queen does. You wait till he signs a big contract and then do everything you can to get rid of him as soon as he signs that contract.
Right.
I'm selling on this guy. I don't. The Packers have always been a pretty patient. I think a pretty good developing organization, and for them to just be like, we're kind of done with you. We're just going to use your body until we don't need it anymore.
And don't forget they got Tyron Hopper, who they drafted, last year or the year before?
Yeah, they had a Tyron Hopper, last year.
Yeah, there you go. So it feels like he's definitely on his way out. Character-wise, that's something you don't just fix overnight. This is nature. He's going to revert back to it. So if I have Quay Walker, I'm selling him, and I'm just about avoiding him in redraft. Not fully avoiding him. Like if he falls far enough, eventually there's value there, but he's not somebody I'm targeting as my top 2 or 3 linebackers.
Right. Yeah, there's generally
LB3, LB4. Would you consider him?
4?
4, yeah.
Yeah. I'd take a gamble then, but at that point, I'm gambling anyway. You know what I mean?
And I'd be shocked if he was still on the board after that many linebackers were gone.
Yeah. I see him really.
Especially if you start 5 or 6 linebackers, he's going to be way gone by that time.
Oh yeah.
Well, I'm thinking about I'm thinking about, to me, just most of my leagues are starting 3 linebackers and 14-team format, right? And typically in a given year, you expect to have at least 25 guys that are safe picks, meaning that they're going to play full-time all year unless they get hurt. And then there's another 15 guys or so, maybe 20, that you think are pretty good bets to play full-time. And so for me, Quay Walker's in the back end of that. And so if I'm telling you that I'm expecting it to get him as the 42nd linebacker off the board, you're telling me I'm an idiot. Nobody's going to let Quay Walker sit there to 42 after 42 linebackers go.
Yeah, like I said, I honestly expect him to be taking it in that LB2 range, probably that middle to late LB2. That's where he's more than likely going to get drafted, and I'm not giving that up for him.
Right,
I'm taking a shot on somebody else who's got a better position on his team. Some other guys that interest me here. Dre Greenlaw going over to Denver. We've seen him pop off in the past. Even coming back last year from that injury, that first half he had double-digit tackles. Kind of re-injured himself for the offseason. He's had quad issue. Is that right?
Yes.
But he's got a new home in Denver, and Alex Singleton's coming off his own injury, and it's not fully guaranteed to be the main starter there. I imagine he will be, but what do you do with Greenlaw? Are you guys buying or selling him? Let's go.
If the price is right, I'm buying, because we've seen him succeed as an we've seen him succeed as an LB2. So, in other words, we've seen him play Robin to a Batman in San Francisco with Fred Warner, right? So, let's level the playing field and with a clean slate and say Singleton's healthy, Greenlaw's healthy. Even if Singleton is the alpha, I still think Greenlaw can handle that, right? Because he's been in that role before. Now, injuries all have to be considered. If Greenlaw's healthy, man, I really kind of like the fit there in Dallas, or not Dallas, Denver. Because outside of Singleton, I mean, they got Drew Sanders. He's not really panned out. They got Justin Sternard, who's flashed at times, but he's not really panned out. And then after that, they've got nobody. KJ Floyd, Andrew Farmer, LaVelle Bailey, JB Brown, Kareem, they've got nobody. So as long as he's healthy, the volume's going to be there. And like I said, he's shown he can produce as Robin. If Singleton can't make it and he can, then that's just a bonus to me. So I like Greenlaw. But for me to invest, I have to know he's fully ready. And it sounds like he is. But if I feel he's fully ready, then I would be okay as a very low LB2 into the LB3 range. I think I would be okay with that. For Dynasty, that is. Now, y'all may feel different about redraft, or you may feel different about Dynasty.
I think for me, go ahead, Sean. Sorry.
Yeah, I want Tripp to talk some sense into you, Daryl.
well, good luck with that.
Yeah. Try your best.
There you go. What I worry about in Denver is too many mouths to feed. You've got Singleton, you've got Talanoga, Hufanga, and Brandon Jones in the back end. Does Greenlaw play full time? He could get close. I'm like fine with the idea that he's playing 80% of the snaps. Is he playing more? Maybe. And then from a sheer number standpoint, there's only so many tackle opportunities, and everybody who's ever bet against Alex Singleton getting tackles has bet lost money. Has that changed this year? I mean, he has just magical tackle efficiency that no one can really explain. You
can't explain it. Yeah,
and so that production has to come from somewhere. And so I worry that it comes.
But do you trust Hufanga to be healthy? He's had his own health issues the last few years. So
yeah, that's fair. And so maybe Hufanga gets hurt and it's back to Locke or Key, and maybe they are playing all nickel all the time and no dime, and it's like they've got a lot of parts back there with they've got now Jahdae Barron, who is an inside outside type cornerback, and is Jaquan McMillan going to play at all? Is he going to get a few snaps there for time? And so I think there's a lot of sub package flexibility there, which cuts into Dre Greenlaw's workload a little bit, and then when you add to the tackle efficiency rival of Alex Singleton, I worry that the volume is there and then the numbers are there to really get him up there to be an LB2, LB3. If he's LB4, LB5, I feel okay about that. A decent depth for my team, but not a guy I want to start week one.
That's where I'm at. Another guy I'm basically avoiding. There's probably not going to be much at all for me to want to take this guy. He's going to be 28. He's had I don't think he's ever finished the season that he played the entire season ever. He's only hit 100 tackles twice. I mean, a little bit of interceptions, not a lot of sack usage there either. For redraft, there's not enough for me to want to take the shot on him. But I think his name is big enough and hyped enough that somebody else will take that shot and will allow one of these old guys, Levante David, somebody like that, to fall down to me as my LB2 or something, LB3 possibly. David ain't going that far. But anyway, like I said, it's another guy I'm trying to sell off. So even in Dynasty, if I find somebody like Daryl who has more faith and hope in him, then
wow,
I'm blotting you up on some trade offers, man.
I'm blocking you right now.
You wouldn't dare. How about you got, Daryl?
You are. This is true. This is true.
So what I do like about just redraft in general is how high people are for rookies and for the free agents. You know, the new shiny things on my team are, you know, these places I really like. And then they go into redrafts and they still have that same big-eyed, you know, happiness of, oh, man, you know, I got to get this rookie. You know, these veterans are going to fall. Or, hey, Dre Greenlaw just went to Denver. He's gonna steal the show. And, you know, these guys go higher than I'm willing to give up for them in redraft, and allows these old-timers who are just steady as can be, constantly overlooked, that, you know, I can build a solid defense around. I'll take me a stud or two and then pick up these old guys that just continue to fall year after year for no real obvious reason other than, you know, people are stuck with rookie feet.
Right.
Yeah, I think that people do get kind of lulled to sleep on some of these guys that just tend to do it year in and year out. Like, you know, it's a guy like TJ Edwards who, you know, I don't love this year in Chicago, but he's a guy that you probably can get pretty easily. You're not going to have a ton of competition for. He's been an LB1 or close to it a couple of years in a row.
Another guy like Robert Spillane, yeah, he's been an LB1 the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are put off about him going to New England. That's
crazy.
That's one of our rules in redraft is we don't draft anybody from New England, basically. Yeah. You might take a shot on like Duggar or something like that, but, you know, linebackers, D-line, you stay away from those guys because of the way Belichick played them. You know, it was different from week to week. You just could not count on anybody.
Yeah, but I don't think you're not going to see that same MO now. Not with Vrabel.
Right.
Vrabel's completely even though he comes from the Belichick school, he's completely different on how he handles teams. So Robert Spillane in New England,
I'm buying.
I'm freaking buying that because they're still going to be a bad team, right? I mean, what he's walked into, Vrabel, that is a complete rebuild. Now, luckily for him, he has the quarterback, right? You don't have to find the quarterback in this rebuild, which is hard to do because I'm a believer in Drake May. But you know, he brought over Harold Landry in free agency, which is a Vrabel guy. That tells you what you need to know about him. But they've got Christian Ellis, Robert Spillane as their two, and I'm looking at our lads right now. So right now they've got Christian Ellis, Robert Spillane as the two inside guys with Jelani Tavai and Jack Gibbons, who comes over from Tennessee, as the two backups. I don't know that the situation really changed for Spillane as far as volume and production coming from Vegas to New England, right? I think it's kind of more of the same. And I don't think Vrabel would have brought him in if he didn't truly feel that he could fill that spot. So, I mean, Tavai's nothing special. I mean, he's a solid linebacker, but he's not really anything crazy good that you have to say, well, Spillane can't pass him or he's going to have his hands full. So,
yeah.
And even Ellis, I mean, I think he's kind of just above average guy. I think Spillane is your star linebacker, and he kind of fits what Vrabel and the Patriots want to do, right? That downhill thumper type linebacker. So,
I think Spillane's a great call. In fact, I just traded for him in that Premier League, fantasy league, just a couple of days ago. I got him for I traded a 3 for Spillane and a 5, I think. I was really pleased with that.
That's not bad. That's not bad at all.
No, you just got one of the top linebackers over the last 2 years. Really shouldn't see any drop off this year. I think that
he's probably going to give you 130, 140 tackles at least.
Yeah, you look at him and Zach Bond last year, their numbers were pretty damn close to being the same with the sacks, interceptions, and everything. I mean, he's getting turnovers for you too. So it's not just, tackles. This guy's everywhere. And you look at the wear and tear on his body, he had plenty of rest there in Pittsburgh for many years. So it's not like he's just an old wore out guy. He's right smack dab in the middle of his prime. But I think that fear of New England just being trash for so long to draft IDPs has really drove his price down. And this is, that's what I'm saying. Like he's buy now.
Yeah, I think so,
redraft.
too, yeah.
Redraft is probably sliding maybe towards the end of the first rounds, if like IDP only. This is what I'm looking at. Yeah, he's probably sliding down there, and you're going to get a guy that's potentially top 3. You know what I mean? That's you can't beat that. So yeah, definitely like him as a.
So I got one for you.
All right.
And I believe Tripp mentioned his name just in passing earlier in the show.
I'm
And
surprised you paid attention.
Shut up.
Look at you go, Daryl. You're on another level.
Hey,
Hit it.
Hey, I have my moments, all right? The peach is working for me. Leave me alone.
There we go.
And I'm curious because I'm looking at, again, I look at our lads for roster assignments here. Right now, our lads has Devin White as the starting weak side linebacker in Vegas. So they've got Landon Roberts at the middle. They've got Devin White as the weak side. And it looks like they're only going to run the 2 linebackers according to this. But
I figure Luke
with
Masterson
Pete Carroll,
gets a few snaps.
Yeah, they've got Tommy Eichenberg, who they drafted. They've got Jalen Smith, who, God help me, I didn't even know was still in the league. I thought he quit already. They got Cody Lindenberg. They got some younger guys, but I guess my question to either of you, redraft or dynasty, is Devin White a valuable option? And if so, how much faith are you putting into him? Because he's had like one of the weirdest falls ever. Right? Like he was at Tampa Bay just fantasy killing people, right? And then it's like after he left Tampa Bay, he was like the worst linebacker ever.
What he owes Levante David a sizable check for making him look good all those years.
Yes.
Yeah, then he got his job taken from him in Philly, and bounced around Houston and all that last year. I want no part of him at all. I don't trust it. I'm gonna let somebody else deal with that. Now, if he stays on the waivers for a couple of weeks and starts popping off, I'll pick him up because I like to rotate my bench players. And on IDP, I'm trying to pick up the hot hands, and if that's him, then yeah, I'll drop one of my bench guys. But he's probably just gonna sit on the bench, and I'm just doing that to keep somebody else from getting him and maybe scoring some points against me. But I don't think he's somebody I could trust to draft, not wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I agree. You'd have to be in a deep league to think that he was draftable. It's even I hear what you're saying about the depth chart. It's how do you look at that and not be attracted to that name? But I think I could probably find 40 guys I like better than that.
Absolutely. I can't. I'll have to see it, and then it's going to have to be consistent for me to take a shot on him. And that's, like I said, at best, I might pick him up on the waivers. Dynasty, I guess his name has a little bit of value right now. You might trade him for a 10th rounder.
I think even then that's kind of pushing
it. yeah. I don't want to, ask too much.
But I kind of have to believe that Pete Carroll sees something, right? And my theory is, or my thought process is, this depth chart is really.
It's not great.
No.
It's not. I mean, you've got a Landon Roberts who I really love. I mean, he's nothing special. Right, but I like Roberts. And then you've got, like I said, you've got Tommy Eichenberg, Amari Gaynor, Jalen Smith, Cody Lindenberg, Matt Jones, Jalen Walker, and Wesley Steiner, whoever the hell that is. That is their complete linebacker core. None of those freaking names pop off to me.
It's Jeremy Chin to the moon is what I'm seeing.
Yes.
in Vegas.
Yes.
And we talked about mouths to feed in Denver. I was like, there's no mouths to feed in Vegas. Like, who the heck is going to make these tackles? That's crazy. I mean, who can cover anybody there? I was like, do they plan
It's
on
a
like
mess.
pass defense this year? It's just crazy.
I'm gonna target the line, the D line, and that's probably it. I'll probably take a shot on Chin, yeah, for sure. But
Yeah.
I mean, Roberts, like I say, I see him as a thumper who I'll pick him up later rounds, maybe. But Devin White, man, after the way that went with Philly, where they were like, yeah, he's going to be one of the starters. Then they're like, well, he may really not be one of the starters, and to just didn't even travel with the team, and then disappeared.
That was so weird, right? I mean, that whole thing was weird with him there.
It had to be something for real, because like he never picked up anywhere and started anything meaningful. Even Houston, that you've got your coach was a linebacker, that's his thing, and he's
right.
So yeah, I'm not messing with that. That'd be somebody else's headache.
Yeah.
Two guys I do want to look at. One guy for sure I see as a bit of a steal. Tyrell Dodson in Miami, I think, has been really quiet as a re-sign. Miami deployed both linebackers at 100% of the snaps, and Anthony Walker's gone. They signed KJ Britt, who is just a depth piece. He did nothing in Tampa. I think Willie Gay, again, just depth. So I think Terrell Dotson is a good buy low candidate right now, and somebody you could pick up as a bit of a sleeper in redraft. Not a big time sleeper, but somebody who's definitely overlooked with the big free agent
playing next to Jordan Brooks. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a guy I'm thinking would be good. Sounds like you guys agree on that one.
Yeah,
and
that's good. Mm-hmm.
This next one here has a lot to do with the rookie fever and with Cody Simon out there in Arizona. The hot new free agent, Akeem Davis Gaither, out in Arizona. How do you guys like that? There's a lot of talks of it being a one linebacker town. Maybe it's Mac Wilson that gets it, and Davis Gaither takes over the Mac Wilson role, or Cody Simon comes in and just takes everybody's lunch money and their job. That's what I keep hearing. So, where are you guys at on this?
I think early on it's going to be Wilson and Gaither, right? Because they've got the experience, they've kind of got the time put in at this level. Simon is maybe someone I would watch as a rookie. I kind of like Akeem Davis Gaither. I mean, I thought he was okay in Cincinnati. I don't think he was anything special, but I thought he did a solid job, and I would kind of feel like he's going to be in that similar role, although Arizona doesn't have a Logan Wilson. That's your difference right there. How is he going to perform without Logan Wilson? How is he going to perform without Jermaine Pratt, right? Because he was kind of like the third guy in Cincinnati. And now he's getting elevated to number 2. And I don't know, maybe 1, because I'm not completely sold on Mac Wilson, right?
Right.
I think I'm selling on him just because I think what he's going to be asked to do isn't going to work. Because I think not having Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt around you makes a big difference.
No, I think Davis Gaither is an interesting buy. I think people tend to sleep on the Cardinals. This happened last year with Mac Wilson. Now, he wasn't all that, but he was basically free, and he was a guy that you could start in a deeper league or rotate through.
What would you feel comfortable giving for Davis Gaither or spending as far as draft capital? That would be my question. Where do y'all think the value is there?
If someone would take a fourth round rookie pick I think I would take a look at that. Be an interesting dart throw because that Knight and Martin will be gone by then, and so you're not looking at any startable options. So that's something I consider if I need to help a linebacker. And so Davis Gaither fits better, I think, in a Kaiser White role than Wilson does. I think Wilson stays in the role he's in, and so the question is, just that White role is that. Do they want somebody to come in there and play it full time? And I'm not 100% sure they do, to be honest with you. I could see that being a rotational bet, the pick, spot, but at a price of a fourth round dynasty pick, it'd be worth finding out.
Yeah, for sure. And his contract was nothing like guaranteeing a full time starter position either. It was pretty solid money, but it wasn't like, hey, this guy's coming in, he's for sure our starter.
Right.
But it does have that. We're going to give this guy a shot. At taking it. So, and seeing what Gannon has done with Kaiser White, he had Alex Singleton back in the day too, I believe, over in Philly. And so he's taken unknowns and really turned them into something, I think, or at least his system creates a position for these guys. And I just don't see Mac Wilson being that 3-down guy that you're going to leave on the field all the time, in coverage and everything else. But we just haven't seen enough of, Davis Gaither either, other than the tail end of last year, which he looked pretty solid. He's a guy I'm looking to buy.
Yeah, and he's never really had a chance because he's always been behind Wilson and Pratt. So he finally gets out from under their shadow, and it wouldn't be the first guy to come into a second contract and finally get a shot. I think of Alshire, who came out with a lot more fanfare, but got a shot in a second contract and was impactful for fantasy. So this guy could be, a poor man's version of that.
Yeah, that's I'll dig him in just about every format. I think fourth round rookie picks pretty fair offer there. If you are in a deeper league, maybe even a late third at that point, because after the top 25 picks, it's dart throws anywhere.
Yep.
And there's no guarantee on any of them. Even, your first round guys, how many of them pan out? Second round guys. So, if you can get at least a guy is going to get a decent shot at starting over a rookie linebacker who may never see the field ever.
Yeah.
We've seen that happen plenty of times. So.
Well, think about it this way, that Gaither is a former fourth round pick. And so do you really want to go pick up a Barrett Carter or a Danny Stutzman and wait and see what happens to those guys? Or at very least, it's good roster management to put Davis Gaither on your roster. See what happens with him. If he doesn't play well this year, you gain the roster spot back.
Yeah, for sure. Well, pretty much summed up all the guys I think I had some questions on. Another guy I'm trying to target defensive back-wise is Malik Mustafa. I really liked what he came in and showed last year. Hufanga's gone, but when Hufanga came back from his injury last year, I thought he would go back to the bench, and Jair Brown would be, start next to Hufanga, and it was the opposite. Brown was the one who got sent to the bench, so I think that spoke volumes for Mustafa there. So he's a guy I'm looking to target at safety, and he's probably going to be free in it everywhere. So that's a guy I'm looking at. One guy I am scared of.
Mustafa in a few places. I do like that. I have him in a few places.
I'm buying Mustafa, which defensive backs are fickle anyway. So, you're definitely not giving up much of anything. Redraft, I'm definitely taking a shot. Yeah. So, especially in my IDP on leagues, I'm hammering linebacker. I'm taking some edge. If it's two defensive tackles, I'm taking a guy like Buckner, Turner, somebody like that. I'm going to take them a little earlier just to go ahead and shore up one of those spots, and I'll just sweat it later. Defensive backs are some of the last things I'm taking, and I feel like he's going to be a guy that's going to be there sitting there in those last rounds to take a shot on, who should pay big dividends by the end of the year. One guy I'm a little worried about, and I'm selling, is Brandon Jones. He had a big year last year. I'm not really worried about Hufanga stealing much of that. I just find him a shaky player on the field sometimes. And just with all the upgrades done in the secondary, with what it was already there, all the mouths to feed, I think he just hit his ceiling more or less. So that's a guy I'm flipping right now if I can.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for taking a guy who was a big hit at safety, and if you can get something for him, then something of value, then you move on to see if you can't get the next one. It's almost like just almost like Frogger. You just try to keep going before you get run over. So, hop to the next open lane. So it's you're never going to have to try very hard to convince me to sell the defensive back if I can get something of value for it.
Yeah, there's nobody really off limits either.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because it's defensive back. Week 3, everybody who we thought we were going to be in the top 12, half of them are injured or something crazy is happening. They're just not producing. New coordinators, new scheme, whatever. You can find somebody on the waivers just about every week that's going to at least not hurt you score-wise. So, yeah, I think I pretty much wrapped it up. Most of the guys I had here just buy and sell, just kind of guys I'm a little unsure of. Just curious what your guys' thoughts were.
Yeah, good stuff. Tripp, what do you got? Anybody that you we haven't mentioned that you kind of want to point out?
Well, we were talking about D-backs. We haven't spent a ton of time talking on them. So I think from the veteran standpoint, the two guys that jumped off, as you all probably know, I have this little chartered table that I maintain and then post on Twitter that has lineups starting for safeties, and then I track deployment and scheme information just for my own interest for one thing, but if anybody gets some use out of it, great. And there were a couple that really jumped off the page at me, and the first one was Will Harris, who was a cornerback in Detroit for a while and then was in New Orleans for a while and in and out of the lineup, and he all of a sudden went and got like a 2-year $8 million deal to succeed Jeremy Chin in Washington, which I didn't even see it when it happened. Like, I didn't even see news of that signing when it happened. I didn't know it until you just said it. Yeah, I found the news at Our Lads, like, well, that's pretty interesting. And so I went, I had to do a little bit of research, which takes 5 seconds and 5 minutes in Google, and Spot Track, and a couple other things. Like, oh, well, that's pretty interesting, right? Because that Quan Martin
is interesting,
and the Harris is there. It's hard to imagine he plays exactly the same role that Chin played, but I think about a guy like Donovan Wilson, who was productive in Dallas under Dan Quinn, and so here's Will Harris has a role. So I think he's basically free, and he sounds like a pretty solid DB too.
Yeah, a very high upside. I mean, that's free and can potentially in the top 8 or something. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
You can't beat that value.
And the second guy that caught my eye was Ifeatu Melifonwu, who was in Detroit for 4 years. And he kind of broke out very briefly in 2023 and then got hurt, I guess, or something. And I don't know if we ever did find out what happened to him, but he hardly played at all in 2024 until the very end of the year. And it was a guy that, the thought is that he and Kirby Joseph were the safeties with Melifonwu strong, Joseph deep, and Branch was the nickel. Next thing we know, Branch is playing safety and Melifonwu's hurt. Well, he's popped up. He showed up in Miami. He's playing alongside. I can't remember who he's playing alongside. Nobody particularly compelling because Javon Holland is
Ashton Davis.
Ashton Davis, yep. Ashton Davis, yes. Who could never hold down a starting job.
Doesn't scare you at all.
Job. Exactly. Lost his job to UDFAs in New York when he was there. And so Melifonwu was there. So but Ashton Davis has always been kind of a deeper guy too. So, but that being said, Miami is more known for, two high structures and not so much that true strong safety role like Dan Quinn might have. And so that makes me wonder a little bit, but Melifonwu was 6'3", 220. So it's worth paying attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to Washington for just a minute, and the only reason I seen this because when you were talking about Harris there for a minute, I was looking at their depth chart. And something that I have got a ton of questions about this offseason. One player in particular, Bobby Wagner. And I feel like I know, well, I know what I feel like as far as dynasty versus redraft. Like redraft, there's no effect here, right? You're drafting him for 1 year and you're hammering that. Dynasty, there's some hesitation, but I feel like he's the Tom Brady, right? When is the fall off coming? When is the drop coming? Right? I think in Dynasty, you play it 2 years at a time with him. You don't really play the long ball. You're not looking 3-4 years because let's face it, he's no spring chicken, right? But I think in Washington, he's a perfect fit. They don't really have anybody else. But I'm getting asked about a lot of rookies, right? Schlesinger over Wagner, Campbell over Wagner. Long term, yeah, you're probably looking at those two. But even in Dynasty, if you're win now, you got to hang with Wagner. Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's almost like I feel like, again, it's the same thing with Brady. If you've stayed with him this long and committed this long, you're riding till the wheels fall off, right? I mean, am I wrong? Should you be getting in Dynasty? Should you be getting rid of Wagner now because he's probably your LB1 at very least your LB2? And I don't know that a rookie in the immediate year 1, year 2 is going to give you the same production he does, right? Now maybe years 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I would, yeah. Schlesinger, Campbell, I like both of those guys because I think their situations and what they fit, I like them. But if you're a win now team, it's kind of hard to give up on Wagner, right? I mean, he just keeps, I mean, it's kind of like the Brady thing. He just keeps defying you, and he's good year after year.
I guess you got to put it in numbers, though, right? So if you're telling me that he's as valuable as Campbell and Schlesinger, then you're telling me you'd give up a second for him.
If I can get a second for him, I might pull that trigger, but it depends on my depth as well. Because again, these guys are still nothing's guaranteed for these guys.
No,
I kind of love that. When you said that, Sean, if I can get a second for Wagner, I probably smash that. But at the same time, if I do that, and I'm a win now team, if my team is a legit playoff contender, fantasy bowl contender, I've got to know that what I have as far as depth, right? I got to know what else I have to have. I mean, it's kind of tricky. I don't really know how to answer that. I mean, I know my gut feel says no. If you're a contender, no, you ride Wagner to the wheels fall off. If you're not a contender, then you get whatever, take the draft pick, whatever. And I know it's different for redraft because you're playing year to year, but Dynasty, he's been so good for so long, and the change to Washington hasn't affected him.
Going to redraft with, because again, everybody's going to still have that rookie mindset on them, that fresh new faces.
Right.
Everybody sees Zach Bond, they see Jamin Sherwood. You're the new guys. Then you got guys like Roquan, Zaire, they're going to be your top guys and all that too. So people are going to be chasing some of last year's points, some of the new names. Schlesinger, probably Campbell, they're probably going to chase. So now we're looking at Campbell basically falling to the bottom third or so in redraft of your top linebackers. And, if I can pull off a Robert Spillane, Bobby Wagner turn, I'm doing it. I mean, that'd be fantastic.
What about a Jack Campbell Wagner turn?
See, I avoid the Lions linebackers. Jack Campbell's not somebody I target. I just don't. I don't trust the system to, Alex Anzalone has held that down. But even when Campbell's been in there, his numbers haven't been fantastic. From an IDP perspective, as an NFL player, he's a fine linebacker, but he's not giving me the production I want. So, and people have been fascinated with his name and what they've seen his first couple of games and all with him. That Yeah, I'll let people chase him, and I'll
So,
I'll wait and grab
guess
Levante David instead.
Ooh,
Because Levante David has been overlooked for the last 8 years. You can get him as your
but
LB2 or 3 almost every year. And the guy finishes as a low end LB1, high LB2 every year.
they're kind of in the same boat, right? David and Wagner, they're kind of.
Wagner, David, Demario Davis is there. Now he falls down that chart a little further, but I mean, dude's still solid and gives you some sack upside. And I want to say there's one more that's getting on up there.
So I guess my question to you two is, regardless, well, I don't want to say regardless, but depending on redraft, dynasty, what your roster is, what are you doing with Wagner? Do you stay with him until it completely just derails, or are you going to try to move it? If it's me, I think I'm invested at this point. I'm just riding it till the wheels fall off, because I don't think I'm going to get the value back in return. Even if it's 1 year, I don't think I can get the value back in return in a trade. I just don't. So for me, I would rather just keep him knowing what he is, right? He's a 130, 140 tackle guy. It doesn't matter. I don't know that I can give him up and wait for 2 years down the road on him. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know if that's how you guys feel. But
generally, when I have those guys, like you said, they generally do expire on my roster. I usually don't find anybody willing to pay for production. I just the name of the game is scoring points, and too many people will pass up points. It's just which I find
potential.
For potential, yes. You know, and so usually I rarely find people willing to buy guys that are in their 30s like that. That's just a normal thing. I had an interesting offer today, actually. Somebody offered me James Conner for a second, and it's a point per carry league, so it's like worth thinking about. And I just couldn't pull the trigger. And it's like
point per carry?
Yeah. And it's like
that's tough.
Well, I wasn't necessarily a contender either. It's it was a league where I'm still kind of trying to get this team up and running. And so I was like, I ended up getting a deal I liked. And so, but I wouldn't have just picked. I wanted to move that pick and get a veteran. But I thought long and hard about Conner. And it's an interesting thing. Do you take a guy that's 30 years old? And running back's a little bit different than linebacker, obviously. You can play till you're 35. I don't think when's the last running back that was 35? Frank Gore, I guess.
Derrick Henry is the next one.
Yeah. So there you go. So this interesting thing, right? It's like it's just really hard to sell a guy, and this guy, obviously my league mate's trying to sell James Conner for a second. It's not a bad price, and here I am. I'm somebody who likes points, willing to deal with some age. I couldn't do it.
My question would be: Is your league mate, is he a win now contender?
Well, if I was a win now contender and I felt like 100% would have pulled the trigger on that, would have been very comfortable with that. So that's a big difference, right?
It's funny you mentioned Conner because somebody asked me today about Conner, and I was like, kind of long in the tooth, got some mileage. Dynasty, I don't know. I may move him, and then they come back and they said, "Well, I said, plus they got Trey Benson there." And he's like, "Well, I have Trey Benson." And I was like, "Well, that changes everything, right?" I mean, it's one thing to have James Conner and not have the handcuff, but to have James Conner and have that handcuff, I think the value completely changes that.
So what I see more often than not is if let's say I have Bobby Wagner, another team wants him, I'm going to try to trade for a linebacker who I see as, probably not the same caliber as Wagner, maybe a tier down. I'm going to try to trade for him, maybe with some youth. Maybe I take a shot on, maybe Terrell Dotson. Maybe I do pull the trigger on something like that, but I want Terrell Dotson and a draft pick, maybe a fourth or something. So now I can take a shot on like Stutzman or something too. So now I'm getting a shot.
Would you trade Wagner for Schlesinger with JOK out for the year? in Cleveland. Would you trade Wagner for Schlesinger and a third?
100%, easily.
Yeah.
A fourth?
Yeah.
So you're getting a known.
Yeah, I would take Schlesinger over Wagner. Period. Just because the age is there, and that's just kind of the way I play, I guess. That there's a limit.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you.
And so yes, Sean makes a good point that player might not ever be startable. That's possible, but
right.
Very true.
I would take that bet.
His draft capital and his position shows that Schlesinger should be a solid guy. I mean, so he's probably one of your safer draft pick gambles. Campbell would be the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, they're dart throws, realistically. But
I don't know if I've asked you, Sean, but Tripp already kind of said Campbell was his guy. Would you rather have Schlesinger with JOK out or Campbell with Dean kind of in question? I mean, because clearly Philadelphia and Cleveland drafted those linebackers with some pre-knowledge that we don't have. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Insider trading. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought Campbell was the most well-rounded linebacker of all the rookies before the draft. So he was my top guy then. And he still is. Just because I trust what Vic Fangio can do with a linebacker over what Jim Schwartz is going to do out there. And there's less of a hurdle there down to Schlesinger. Was one really good season we got to see from him. It's still some unknowns, I think, for me there. I feel like Campbell's your safer pick. He's shown he can do a lot of things. Blitz, coverage, I thought was all pretty solid. I have more questions about Schlesinger. It's his landing spots what boosts him up, I think, more than anything. But yeah, Campbell was my top guy before the draft. He's still my top guy. Even if I got to sit on him for a year or so, it's not that big a deal. It's IDP, man. We're used to this stuff.
Right.
Daryl, on your point with Wagner, the way I think about that from a trade construction standpoint is if I'm taking Wagner in trade, I also want a pick. Like I want to balance out the youth and the age in my roster. I tend to get some challenges with these rosters where they're so old and always work. I'm always digging to try to keep some youth to keep that in balance because you can just see your entire roster explode and you're just down to the.
And I get that, but. Damn, don't you think that's a hard sell? I mean, if you're a Wagner
doesn't
owner,
usually happen, but it's fair though.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're a Wagner owner and I don't know, you all pick the player, Wagner and player X plus a draft pick.
No, what I'm wanting is I want Wagner and a pick, and if
I'm
willing to give up a better player, like a better, not a better, but
okay, so Wagner,
a younger player that's who's
Wagner and a pick plus for Spillane.
Well, I could do that. I would take Wagner and a pick if I could deal Spillane away. I'd take Wagner and a pick. That would work.
Because you're getting
if I'm a Wagner owner, I have a hard time giving away Wagner and a pick for Spillane because I feel like 1 year, right? Even if it's Dynasty, and I know that's not how you play it, but even 1 year, like Wagner and hell, I don't know, a fourth or a fifth for Spillane. I'm like, well, I'm kind of like, for
that's
1 year, why would I give it? It is, but I almost feel like, why would I give up that pick when I think for 1 year, Wagner is still better than Spillane, and I love Spillane.
Well, let's go with a guy like Roquan then. Like, what do you need to add to Wagner for Roquan?
It's got to be pretty similar. I mean, because realistically, these guys are in the same. Again, you're still trading for similar production and to offset the age,
but I feel like
a chance for you to decide what you want after that with the draft pick. So
but I feel
now you just got another pick.
Yeah, but I feel like Roquan is a tier above Spillane. At least a half tier.
Yeah.
So for that, for me, age-wise, production-wise, I could justify Wagner in a pick. For Spillane, I don't know that I feel that comfortable doing that.
No, I hear you.
I mean, if I'm giving Wagner in a third for Smith, I'd have to have Wagner in a second. I'd have to have a way better draft pick for Spillane. And like I said, I love Spillane in New England. I think he's going to dominate there. That's a tough call. I mean,
I like both.
I feel like a lot of
I could pull the trigger on that.
I feel like a lot of fantasy managers are at the point with Wagner, like I said, with the whole Tom Brady thing. You've probably stuck with him this long because he's been that damn good, especially if you're a contender, right? Like if you're making the playoffs and you're pushing for championships every year, it would be hard to give up Wagner and a pick. I think you would really have to be getting something back, I think.
What's what I mean? That's why you would go for a guy like Roquan or Warner or somebody like that. That you're getting a good caliber player that's younger, and therefore you're willing to give up the pick and the player. Or conversely, if you feel like you need more assets and you don't want to give up the production, then okay, you take Wagner and you take that pick and try to turn that into something if you need more assets on your roster. Especially like if you need offense. Like I don't think I would, you take Roquan. I would need a second, to be honest with you, especially in this current year's draft, because I don't like what's in the third. But if I can get Wagner in a second for Roquan, then I do that, and I take that second and try to turn it into something on offense.
Yeah, you got a better shot at Dillon.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Player. Mm-hmm. I mean, realistically, in Dynasty, you could treat it very similar to redraft without really holding on to too much. You're looking at that 3-year window or whatever. Or that's how I do it. In fact,
I think it depends on the player too, right? Because I think you can treat Dynasty like redraft when it's a player that's good and aging. Example, Bobby Wagner, Tom Brady. They're up there in years. The fall off or the retirement or whatever's coming, but they just keep producing year after year. So if it's
depend on the draft class. I'll go with that.
Right.
I think Tripp nailed that part. It depends on if this was a really deep linebacker, draft, then I think there's more flexibility to take a later pick or whatever with that trade. But
right,
yeah.
But to your point, Daryl, there's a guy, Ryan McDowell, who works at Dynasty League Football. I remember him saying one time on a podcast that he felt like that he needed to get out from under Tom Brady as Tom Brady aged. So he sold Tom Brady for a second. And I don't remember if it was super flex or not, but he thought that he was, getting out while the getting was still good. This was the year 2011.
Oh man!
And you got to the good stuff yet.
And I know that's kind of the damn. I mean, that's like the damned if you do, damned if you don't, double edge of the sword thing, right? I mean, we talk about Wagner and Brady like it's kind of a common thing, but in actuality, it's not. You don't get players that are their age that plays that damn good for that long. You just don't. It doesn't happen that often. So.
And there's some at every position too. I mean, you got Derrick Henry still doing things at his age. You got Mike Evans still 1,000 yards.
You know what? I hope the Tennessee Titans don't win a damn game just because they let him go.
That's a very fair bet. I mean, you could probably get that. Surely.
Why you got to trigger me, Sean? Why? You know how fragile I am right now.
Yeah. Vulnerable Derrick Henry talk. I love it.
See, Tripp, be glad you're not a Tennessee Titans fan because me and Sean, we're all each other's got right
now. Yeah. Well, that's all they want to show on TV, and it's awful.
There's some hope. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it so much depends on the quarterback, right? If you got the quarterback, you got something. So.
Well, it used to be fun. We could watch, Harold Lander, dropping in some coverage, Russ Pasher. He was a fun player to watch, and he's gone now too. So.
But it
Hey,
hurts when they
you-
shed
you
your good
used-
players. Yeah, that
I hate
sucks.
Yeah, you used to could throw it deep to A.J. Brown and watch him score touchdowns, but he sucks. So
Yeah.
let's trade him to Philadelphia.
Yeah, that was rough. To be fair, I did think Treylon Burks would be good. What do I know? That's why I'm on IDP.
So hell, let's draft Isaiah Wilson in the first round because he's going to be our savior.
Yeah.
I knew it was trouble when Burks first came to Tennessee and they were saying he was struggling with like allergies and stuff around here, and I was like, it's going downhill fast.
It was Dorian.
Things you don't
what's
hear.
His name? What was that big golf guy?
Oh,
from
Beckham Green or Green Beckham?
yeah, Dorial Green Beckham. Yeah, it's that
Oh,
guy
yeah.
over
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's a name I ain't heard in a minute. Wow.
Gone
Yeah,
are the days of Drew Bennett, right?
Yeah,
one, 2
I
year
would
wonder
take
there.
Drew Bennett and
Billy
Billy
Volek.
Volek right now in a heartbeat. Yes. Yes. Hey, for 5 weeks they lit the NFL up, baby.
How about Kenny Brett for like 3.5 weeks? He was like,
Yeah.
this was happening for 3.5 weeks, tore an ACL, and never did anything again.
Those were
And how
great
bad is
3.5
this?
years ago.
You're the only franchise. You're the only franchise in NFL, AFL. I don't even care what FL it is. History to
All
have
the FL's over.
2,000-yard rushers and you can't win a championship. Really? Really?
Ron Tannehill got you close, man.
Really? Really? Sean, Kyle's fired. He's fired. For that. He's fired. He's
You
fired.
leave Kyle out of this.
Dan's
Suffering enough.
fired too. I'm firing both of them just for that comment right there. Anybody else you guys want to talk about? Take that as a no.
I don't have
Oh,
any other.
I got one for you. How about your man Kevin Winston, safety in Tennessee?
Excited about him, actually.
Intriguing. Very intriguing. I know from what I've seen and heard, a lot of people think he could have been a second-round draft pick if healthy, right? I would probably need to go back and watch more. I've watched some of his tape, but I'd need to go back and watch more to make that declaration. I think he's going to be a player that will help in the box, right? If he's healthy, he's going to help us in the box because our linebackers are freaking garbage.
Who
I
starts?
think he's
Who starts a linebacker? Let me sidetrack you there real quick. Cody Barton and who? It's wide open. Just
Hell,
bench
I
him
don't
too
know.
and just go 4 safeties, right?
Might as well.
Do
we have 4
Packers
Yeah.
did 5-6 years ago.
I also like Winston because I have to kind of question at some point what do they do with Amani Hooker, right? With his contract. I think his rookie deal is, Sean, help me, coming up at the end of this year or the end of next, maybe,
For Hooker?
for Hooker. I don't know if I'm 100% on that.
Deep dive real quick. He is in his 6th year.
Yeah, I thought he got signed.
Yeah. I was going to say he's.
Oh, maybe he did. Okay,
he's
so
past
he's
that.
already.
I mean, I'll see Winston getting to the field this year.
I do too. As long as he's healthy, I think he does. I mean, because our linebackers are garbage. So
I think it's the biggest reason why. I think he will be that, third safety because who's the other guy? Woods, I think, was signed over.
Xavier Woods.
Xavier
looking
Woods
at
is the free safety. Amani Hooker is the strong. They've got Winston as the backup to Hooker is the strong. But your linebackers right now by our lads is Draymond Jones is the outside linebacker. Arden Key's an outside linebacker. Neither one of them were special. You've got Cody Barton as the left inside guy and Otis Reese, the fourth, as your other.
Yeah, and I expect them to be
I would
just
buy Winston.
one. Yeah. just one linebacker formation is probably so. Winston, I think we'll see some good, at least good
But
rotation.
I've heard a lot of good things on him. Really, I have. I've watched some of his stuff, but some nationally syndicated people, they really believe Winston would have been a second round pick, maybe pushed very late first had he been healthy. So maybe Tennessee falls into something there. But yeah, I definitely think he's worth somebody picking up for sure, especially with our depth. So
To me, he was my. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say how dreadful I've been at trying to figure out rookie safeties. It is not my strong suit at all. Antonio Johnson a couple of years ago, I was big on him. I thought he was going to be more than Brian Branch. That looked awful last year for the Jaguars. He looked lost on the field.
but Brian Branch is such an athlete, though. I mean, he kind of does everything, right?
I thought that's why he wouldn't. That's why I had him second to Johnson, because I thought Johnson would be more productive IDP wise, where Branch would be kind of Swiss Army knifed everywhere, and just kind of, I don't know, maybe lose some volume towards the ball at times, and just I thought Johnson was the more rounded guy, who I've seen a more solid position for. But he just looked lost.
Johnson did pick it up a little bit late towards the end of last season, if memory serves me correct.
That entire Jaguars defense was a mess. The way they rotated their linebackers and safeties, Darnell Savage was in the mix, Andre Cisco. I mean, it was just bad. But Johnson looked lost in some of the coverage aspects last year, I thought.
Right.
Yeah, JL Skinner never panned out in Denver. I was high on him. And then last year, Jaden Hicks was my main guy, which I think he's going to do really well this year, actually.
Kansas City, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like that you bring up
Hicks. I kind of think he's going to break out. Yeah.
Because I think Winston is kind of like Hicks. I think there's some similarities in their game. And I think Winston will be a guy that will need to wait a year and have a chance next year. I did look at Hooker's contract while we're talking. Hooker, this is the last year of his current deal. So maybe there's an opportunity for him to, if they let Hooker move on, but so that's interesting. Because Winston was my safety 4 coming in, keeping in, not necessarily for NFL draft position, but just for IDP. And so I was pretty interested to see where he landed. I didn't love the landing spot in Tennessee. I'm not sure how much production drives to the safeties, but I hadn't thought about the fact there's absolutely nothing at linebacker. So yeah, that does make sense. How about Cedric Gray? Remember a couple of people were interested in Cedric Gray back in the day. Is he still around?
He's there.
Yes.
He's there.
He's there.
Just as good a shot as anybody else right now.
Right.
James Williams converted from safety. I mean, he's got a shot.
That's right. Yeah, former 7th round pick. Mm-hmm.
It's wide open. It's got to be, right? I don't feel confident Reese or Cedric Gray is having an upper hand. I mean, you can't go by depth right now anyway. But.
No. That's one of my favorite things about IDPs. Tracking stories like that, figure out who emerges. Because Cody Barton's not going to be good either. There's a chance somebody takes over as the top guy and is playing 100% snaps by the end of the year. That was totally free in July.
Yeah.
When Cody Barton is your LB1, you have some issues.
Right.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
You have some major issues.
Ernest Jones, though. They had Ernest Jones, and what happened to that? That was such a fumble.
My point exactly. Why did the Rams let him go? Mm-hmm. He goes to Tennessee, and they felt like, nope, we don't need you.
Yeah.
When they don't have a damn linebacker to save their life, and they're like, nope, you can't be here.
That's got to be a thing, right? It's got to be something,
I guess.
But I mean, what the hell what are we not seeing? What are we missing? I mean, it's not like he was horrible on the field with the Rams. I mean, you'd rather keep Omar Speights over Ernest Jones, really? Really?
That was money. They weren't going to pay him, so they just went ahead and cut him loose. That's what I think that was.
Yeah, but to go to Tennessee, who does not have a damn linebacker to save their life, and they wouldn't keep him, what the hell?
Don't need one.
Okay.
You want to score a bunch of points, kick a lot of field goals, don't need a linebacker.
Well, I mean, I guess I really shouldn't question Tennessee letting Ernest Jones go at linebacker when you have nobody else, when you draft Will Levis to be your quarterback. So, yeah.
It's been a rough go in front office in Tennessee.
If we talk too much longer
I'm about
about
ready
the
to
Titans,
change
he's
teams.
going to be drunk. Yeah, he's going to have to call in tomorrow if we keep on. We're going to switch teams.
Joke's on you. I already called in tomorrow because I have something to do, so I'm not going to work.
Fair enough.
Maybe this is the perfect time, Sean. Just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off, friend.
Go for it. We got nothing.
Anybody else? Rookies?
I think that's
like
good enough, man. We talk too much more. You're going to be crying. Nobody wants to see that.
Yeah, I'm going to fire Kyle for a second time to keep us up.
Hire him back, fire him again.
Yeah. Tripp, thank you, man, for taking the time to join us. And I know you're busy. Why don't you tell everybody what you're working on, where you're at, what you're doing?
I appreciate it. Appreciate y'all having me on. It's good to talk with you again. I'm over at footballguys.com and haven't yet geared up too much on our content yet on Football Guys. I gotta what I like to do at this time of year is to write some scheme analyses of what the new defensive coordinators are likely to do with the personnel that they have. And now that we have free agency and the draft in the books, it's time to get going on it. Teams like Atlanta, we talked a little bit about what they might do. I just like to think that through and find out where some values are, where some fades are. Like last year, I was telling people to draft Caden Ellis and to pass on the Jaguars linebackers. That worked out all right. So hopefully we'll see if I can't get some similar finds like that.
I wish I'd have read that last year. I didn't know they were going to completely wreck my Devin Lloyd shares like that.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Thanks, Tripp. Appreciate it. Again, thank you so much for taking the time out to do this because I can remember back moon and ages ago when you were the stats guy, right? For us over, me and Dan over here at IDP Nation.
That's right.
Stats guy. Yeah, and now you've blossomed into this IDP guru. Yeah, man.
We're kind of say so. Sean, I don't know if you know the background on that, but what would happen is that Dan and Daryl would be on these podcasts all the time, and then Daryl would be trying to spit out a stat or something like that to Dan, and Daryl's like, "Help me out, Dan! Help me out!" I was like washing dishes, and I would shout the stat out as I'm sitting in the kitchen sink. I'm like, "Man, I just gotta I don't know, email them or something like that. I'll give them the stats."
Put a bucket in there. So
there you go.
You know what? In their defense, Dan, Kyle, even you, Sean, they've got their work cut out for them being my coach. I have to give them that. It's not an easy adventure, but
now I've been listening for years, and anytime Tripp come on, it was one of my favorite, episodes. Or just the knowledge this guy's got.
I feel like I learned
this
so
way,
much.
Not that way.
Not so much that way.
I feel like
I think this way. Yeah.
I learned so much when Tripp comes on. It's like he brings a whole different view, a whole different aspect. I know we have Mike on; he does his thing, and we have the IDP Hunter on, Steve. But Tripp is like, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like he's got his own little view niche of IDP, and it's kind of different from everybody else. So I feel like every time he's on, I learn so much.
Or kind of say so. I appreciate it. It's fun to come on and talk about. I really enjoyed it.
A lot of stuff is quite a bit different, man. It's very informative and it's fun, because you can tell you love football. You love the numbers, the stuff nobody else is looking at, and it definitely pays off. So. Yeah, when you love something, man, and you just really deep dive in that, and you feel the excitement and the knowledge and all there, we really appreciate it. Love having you on.
Yep.
Yeah, man. Thanks, bud.
And you're welcome back anytime. You don't have to ask. You just say, "Hey, I'm ready to come back on, and we'll make it happen, man.
All right.
Hurry up, Daryl. We're trying to get off here.
It'll be beer 30 on a Friday. We'll do it.
I know I'm getting all emotional. You got me talking about the Titans, and I got all freaking emotional. But I'm at Hollywood Titan. He's at Sean Teague _8386, and he's at wait a minute, Dynasty. Nope. No, I can't remember. You're gonna have to give me your Twitter.
At Dynasty Tripp with 2 P's.
See, I knew that's what it was. God dang it. At Dynasty Tripp. And we will see y'all next week. Thank you, Tripp. Appreciate it so much, buddy.
See y'all.